G'day, Sam McLean, MCLEAN from Get Up Action for Australia. An overwhelming majority of Australians support strong action to tackle climate pollution. Today, the climate movement from around Australia is uniting behind a simple, effective policy to tackle climate change. It's a climate action fund paid for by a levy on the biggest polluters in Australia. The government's own climate advisor, Professor Garnaut, has recommended this model. So the question is, where is the Prime Minister? Together, we represent industry groups, unions and workers, social welfare groups, faith organisations and climate organisations, large and small, local, national, and we're coming together today behind a policy that is popular with Australians. An overwhelming majority of Australians support action to tackle climate pollution, and the most popular option, the most popular climate policy among Australians is a simple levy on carbon pollution to fund a climate action fund. The most popular option with Australians for climate action is a simple scheme. It's a levy on carbon pollution on the biggest polluters in Australia to fund a climate action fund for Australia. Today's poll shows that 44% of Australians, today's poll shows that the most popular option for climate action in Australia is a carbon price, a climate action fund paid for by a levy on the biggest polluters in Australia. It's more popular than the government scheme, it's more popular than the opposition scheme, and it has 3 times as many Australians supporting it than opposing it. That's a poll released today, and the Australian climate movement is getting behind this policy proposed by Professor Garnaut to put a simple price on carbon and fund climate action into the future. So I'm going to hand over now to my colleagues in the climate movement if they'd like to make any comments, and copies of our open letter to the Prime Minister are for distribution, and we'll take any questions after any comments.
We'll go first if you
Yeah,
like.
go for it.
So do you want to speak to the podium?
My name is Philip Sutton. I'm the convener of the Climate Emergency Network. The Climate Emergency Network was originally opposed to the government's design of the CPRS legislation. However, with this new proposal that's been developed by Professor Garnaut and taken up by the Greens and now by an extraordinarily broad coalition of environmental and other community groups, we now feel that this is something which our organisation, the Climate Emergency Network, should get behind. We think that there's a great opportunity to have a large amount of widespread public support for this initiative to act as a logjam breaker to get things moving. So that's why we're now switching from previously opposing the CPRS to supporting this new proposal. Thank you.
My name's Denise Boyd, BOYD, Australian Conservation Foundation. We welcome this attempt to break the stalemate on climate policy negotiations. A price on pollution is essential. It's a sensible first step to move Australia towards a clean energy economy. We need to be creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs, and an immediate 2-year levy on carbon pollution in this country would actually end that uncertainty that currently exists. It would unlock the investment that's needed in clean energy for this country. Now, worldwide investment in clean energy totaled $162 billion in 2009. Only 1 billion of that was in Australia. Out of the G20 countries, Australia ranks 14th. Now that's behind countries like Mexico, Turkey and Canada. We can do a lot better than that. And a price on pollution is actually the first step there. So the smart thing to do is that we need to prepare Australia's economy for a greater slice of that clean energy investment pie. We commend the attempt to put a price on pollution and to do that quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Paul Tony, TONI, from WWF Australia. WWF Australia strongly supports the Greens' proposal for an interim carbon price. It is imperative that Australia, if it is to play a meaningful role in the international negotiations, shows that it can reduce its own pollution at home now. Professor Garneau's report has demonstrated that this proposal will do so in an affordable way, and by doing so encourage sustainable industry in this country. Thank you.
I'm Jeremy Tager, TAGER, from Greenpeace Australia Pacific. There are 12 new coal-fired power plants being proposed around the country currently in Australia. If we're going to tackle climate change, one of the first things we have to do is stop increasing emissions. And one of the obvious ways of doing that is to put a price on carbon. The Greens interim price on carbon we strongly support as an absolutely necessary step to begin to move away from those kinds of increases in emissions that these 12 new coal-fired power plants represent. Thank you.